This video is brought to you by Avoto, a professional AI photo editor that allows you to perform routine tasks quickly and then sync your edits to other photos in just seconds. Welcome back, everyone. I hope that you're having a great day. And as you look at this behind the scenes image of Jeff, you will notice a lot of gear. Each one of these lights is playing a specific role, and each of those roles has a name. In today's video, I'm going to break down for you some common vocabulary that I'm sure you've heard, like main light, kicker, fill, rim light, hair light, background light, and edge light. Plus, I'm going to give you an overview of grip gear, including flags, C-stands, booms, grip heads, and grip arms. That way, when you hear people like me use terms like these, you won't be in the dark, and you can also get a good idea as to how you might use lighting on your next portrait session. Even if you feel like you've got all this stuff down, I'm sure that you'll find some really good tips in today's video. Everyone has a name for every position where they place a flash on set, whether they're on location or in the studio. And to make things even more confusing, there are often multiple names for the same thing, but don't worry, you'll have all of this down by the end of the video. For the purpose of this discussion, we're going to talk about lighting positions as hours on a clock, with the photographer standing at 6 o'clock and the subject in the middle. If you want to check out any of the gear that I work with in the studio, there will be links to those below and on screen. And clicking on them will help support me to make more videos like this. You could also leave a super thanks below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and sign up for the bell. The key light or the main light probably got its name because it's the key or main light in your setup. It's normally going to be the light hitting your subject's face, and its brightness is going to predominantly determine your exposure. Oftentimes people will use a softbox, umbrella, or beauty dish for this type of light. The key light is usually going to be somewhere between 4 and 8 o'clock, and if you're using a beauty dish, it doesn't have to be at 6 o'clock. It can be wherever you want to put it. Don't let people try to tell you that a beauty dish has to be at 6 o'clock. You can use any modifier in any place that you want, so long as it serves your creative vision. If you place your key light at 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock, it will be referred to as side light or split lighting, which will typically cause only half of your subject's face to be illuminated. I'm personally not a fan of this type of lighting, so you won't see it very often in my timeline, mostly because I want there to be light on both of my subject's eyes. Side lighting can also be unflattering for people with bad skin because it will show all of the texture in their complexion. Fill is simply a light that you use to fill in the shadows of your scene. Oftentimes it's going to be a soft modifier, and it's going to be darker in brightness than your main light. Its main purpose is to preserve details in the shadow areas, and it can also fill in the wrinkles, making people look more youthful. You can use a light behind the camera, under the camera, or on the side opposite of the main light. You can also bounce light off of a ceiling or position a V-flat to reflect light back into the shadows from your other lights. The phrase key light should not be confused with high key lighting, which just means that you have a low contrast scene that's fairly evenly lit and likely a bright background. You can achieve this by using a large key light and a bright fill light. High key images are going to feel bright, welcoming, happy, and commercial. On the other hand, low-key lighting is typically going to feature a smaller main light, less shadow detail, and therefore more contrast. These images are going to feel dark overall and dramatic. Sometimes your key light or fill light might end up in your subject's glasses, and you can often avoid this by angling the light, but let's face it, sometimes things don't always go according to plan, like this image with Kassan, and that's where Avoto, today's sponsor, comes in. They just added a glass reflection removal tool to their AI photo retouching software, and it works great. There's also a new eye bag removal tool, plus you can retouch the skin and add contouring with ease. In addition to all that, you can tether directly into the program and retouch almost in real time. If you want to try out the software, just click on the link in the description for a special offer from Avoto. A rim light is a light that creates a rim around your subject. Normally, it's going to be placed at 12 o'clock behind your model, and its position will be obscured by their head or their body so that you don't end up seeing it in the camera. This light is going to create a halo around their figure, and maybe some of it will wrap around a little bit, but the point of this light is to separate your subject from the background. Many people like to interchange the words kicker and edge light. The purpose of this type of light is to edge out your subject by creating a highlight around the edge of their body and or their head on the same side that you've placed the kicker. This will separate your subject from the background and also add some three-dimensionality to your shot. Unfortunately, people will often use rim light for this type of lighting as well, but I personally think that the phrase rim light should only be used for a light placed at 12 o'clock, whereas an edge light or a kicker can be placed anywhere between 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock, but not 12 o'clock. Typically, you want to make sure that your kicker isn't lighting the side of your subject's nose, which can make it appear bigger on camera. And because of this, it's usually best to keep your kicker right next to the background. You can also use two kickers if you'd like to in order to create more of a 3D effect in your final image. If you want to be in control of the light on your background, you're going to need a background light. You can do this with anywhere between 1 and 4 lights, but I'm sure some industrious person could find a reason to use more. If you use one background light, it's very common to place it behind your subject at 12 o'clock, pointed at 12 o'clock. If you point it near the bottom of the background, it's going to create a gradient from the bottom to the top. And if you point it at the middle of the background, it's going to create a circle of light behind your subject. Most people will use a small reflector, some will use a grid, and others may mix it up with a gel. If you want to light your background more evenly, you could use two lights, one on each side, pointed generally at the center of the background, one on the left and one on the right, which will do a pretty good job, but it won't be as even if you use one or two lights on each side of the backdrop with umbrellas. But if you really want even light, I found that it's best to shine one or two lights into V-flats that are positioned in front of your backdrop so that the light will bounce off the inside of the V-flats and then reflect back onto the backdrop. If you really want to mix things up, you could use an optical snoot and project a pattern of light on your backdrop. A few years ago, someone was assisting me and he thought that a hair light was a light that lit the front of the person's hair, which I could totally understand, but he unfortunately was completely wrong. A hair light is simply a light that you place at 12 o'clock above your backdrop or boomed above and behind your subject, pointed down towards the top of their head in order to create a highlight on their hair or to preserve detail, which will help to separate them from the background. When I'm photographing someone with voluminous curly hair, I will often place my hair light almost directly above them, but slightly behind and pointed down. This will preserve detail without creating a halo around their head. But be careful not to move it too far forward because you can end up with a highlight on the person's forehead right about here. I would strongly recommend the Kupo Steel Baby Boom, which you could use with a C-stand, grip head, and 2 sandbags. The sandbags will keep everyone safe on set, and the boom has a head with 6 flat sides, which will help you keep your light in place. Heavy lights on round boom heads tend to end up rotating downwards after you position them due to gravity. I would not suggest using a boom on an aluminum stand or a kit stand, is what you might have heard it called before, without sandbags or in general. Believe me, I've tried it. A basic aluminum stand isn't made for this much weight and it will start to bend under pressure and you might in fact bend it permanently. Not using sandbags is also very dangerous because it's going to put both your gear and your subject at risk because your setup will be unstable and it might topple over. A flag is anything that you'll use on set to block light. In this image, I used a flag from a Matthews Road Rags kit to darken down Jeff's torso. This helped to lead the viewer's eye up to the model's face, and it's being held in place with a C-stand, a grip head, and a grip arm, which are sold together as a C-stand kit. So let's recap with this image. This is the main light, and it's lighting Jeff's face. This is the fill light, and it's filling in the shadows. The two lights over his shoulders are kickers or edge lights, but not rim lights. This light up here in the back is the hair light, and in this instance, it's lighting up his hat. It's being held up there by a formidable rolling stand, and there is a sandbag on the base, and there's also a sandbag on the other end of the boom, which you can't see in the frame. Behind him is a background light, which is lighting the middle of the backdrop. And finally, there is a flag blocking the key light from hitting his torso, and it's being held up by a C-stand with a grip head and a grip arm, commonly referred to as a C-stand kit. And that's it. It's really that simple. If you want to take your learning to the next level, then I would suggest that you watch this video over here, which is all about where you can place your main light and the lighting patterns that it will create on your subject's face. You could also check out my online members-only learning platform, the Academy with John Gress. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those below, and I will talk to you soon.